Good morning, Mr. Oliver. Arthur Oliver.
Good morning, Mr. Oliver. I don't think I'm familiar with your operations. Are you a new firm?
Yes, and I'm pleased that you will hear about it from me.
Well, I'm listening, Mr. Oliver. I have a couple of minutes.
What was your biggest obstacle at the beginning? I'm thinking about the moment when you took over that little bar in Chicago.
In those days, the biggest obstacle I faced was myself. I made too many assumptions and wasted a lot of time trying to second guess what would happen next. Luckily for me, a problem with supplies arose. In solving it, I learned two things. Business, above all, is what you do, and you should always have a full warehouse.
Thanks, I will remember. Do you still have any more business goals? I'm trying to think what they might be, but I find it hard to think on your scale.
That's understandable. I have several. In one of them, you might even be able to help me.
In what area precisely?
Logistics. Our greatest challenge is delivering coffee to outlets in 50 countries worldwide. The problem is with the final stage of delivery. The goods frequently arrive late and damaged. How does it look in your company?
Faultless. Just ask the people we supply.
Well played, Oliver. Of course, many of them work with us too.
Of course.
Okay. If you want to take up the challenge of working with disingrediation, I'll show you the workings of our logistics.
I admit I've heard a lot about you. Now I can see that most of it was true.
That I'm rude to reps, that I buy up and asset strip companies for fun, and my personal favorite, that I never blink.
Something like that. Meanwhile, you're actually just really direct.
It must be rather frightening in the world of spineless no-hopers, Oliver.
Let's get down to the deal, Mr. Oliver. I'll keep it brief. We supply our partners with the best coffee on the market, delivered punctually, along with business creativity that isn't expected from a supplier.
Sounds promising. Let's see what you've prepared then. If I oversaw the logistics operations of disingrediation, they'd work fine. But I can't oversee suppliers from 50 countries around the world. An analysis of our transportation showed that the drivers delivering to the restaurants were responsible for a variety of errors. Lateness and damaged deliveries were only some of them. So you can see it's a complicated matter. I'm not sure this is the right time to talk about it. Maybe we could schedule it for another day. I have a meeting with an important business partner in a moment.
Well then, briefly, we can speed up the certification of the coffee using my team of samplers. They're highly professional, but they can speed up the process when it's required. You can gain an extra day through that.
That's a reasonable solution, but only short term. As soon as we part company, the problem returns. Your proposal is an evasion. I prefer to face problems head on. I build my authority by overcoming them.
In identifying the problem, we need to start from the human factor. That's usually where it lies. I would recommend improving the communications along the supply chain. Perhaps some training for the restaurant managers and drivers. If they understand each other's needs and expectations, they can collaborate better.
Investing in HR is important, but not at this stage, Oliver. We're flooded with customers and don't have enough staff. Training just gives managers more paperwork to complete. We don't want to stretch our resources and generate costs. We need a creative solution.
If we don't want to invest in people, then we have to improve the deliveries. How about sturdy sisal sacks? They meet the standards of futures contracts, and they could mean you avoid the losses caused by the failings of the suppliers.
I don't need to import standards from an unnecessary branch of the market. Futures contracts and their manipulated restrictive conditions are a game for the naive or swindlers.
I recently invested in a small plantation. They grow a new variety of Arabica, more tolerant of bad storage. We've tested it. It's a costly but resilient bean. If you invested in it, you would be sure your customers won't pick up a late delivery in the taste of your coffee.
That's very interesting. I like to think I know all the plantations worth knowing about, but I've not come across an armor-plated Arabica. You haven't solved my problem, but I could buy into the idea. If I did, I'd expect this discount.
I prefer to look for solutions that will satisfy you even more. If the problem is with the people, then let's motivate them to work harder. Perhaps a bonus system for the best and fastest suppliers. Our companies are different, but it works for us. It should work for you too.
I don't think they earn too little, but the costs aren't too high. On the other hand, I'd prefer it if you took ownership of the idea. I'd want this discount on the actual product.
That's a sensible discount, Mr. Alver. Let's do it. I'll do everything possible to resolve your difficulties as quickly as possible. I should sum up what happened after that meeting. Jordan Alver. The guy was clearly a high roller. Delicious food, richly decorated interior, impeccable waiter. Everything in it screamed, "You can't afford this, Oliver." Out of reach to a simple sales rep like myself. But he did show up at Kersey's funeral. So I plucked up the courage to ask him for a meeting. He agreed. He knew I'd met Marvy.
Did Tom mention the loan?
Alver told me about how he'd lent the Kersey's money, yet Richard had still managed to get himself into debt. I replied that Tom wanted to invest in production of that legendary coffee variety and clear his debts. Alver laughed and called the plan unrealistic. Ruefully, I jabbed my fork into the last piece of that perfectly fried steak. Jordan downed the last of his espresso Merlot, 2010 vintage. Our chat was coming to an end. But I was planning on getting some more info out of him in another way. On my way out, I slipped a bug into his overcoat pocket. If it works, the case might finally pick up momentum. I hot-footed it back to the office. If Alvar suspected anything, I had to catch his first conversation after. I switched the bug on. Music. Sound of pouring drinks. He was probably sitting at some nightclub. He was talking to someone with an Italian accent. Famous Mortonese mafia, perhaps. They were talking. They were talking about me. They knew everything. How I defended Catherine. How I went to the States. That acting as a sales rep was my cover. Jordan started moaning about old Kersey.
Lionel overhyped the whole affair.
Luckily, they managed to persuade him to present the incident as a typical theft, and Catherine's death as an unfortunate accident. It was a pity they'd had to wait so many years for the painting.
Until today.
If only the old man hadn't ballsed up the switch at the port.
It's true that instead of Richard, Kate showed up.
It would have been enough to just wrestle the picture off her. No one needed to die. Up till then, the old man had done a great job. With Britt, for example.
When Richard couldn't be blackmailed by revealing their affair.
The old man persuaded Britt to testify against the Kerseys. That did for them. They were drowning in debt.
Alvar helped them settle, knowing that Richard and Henry had no way of repaying. In recompense, he demanded the picture. But instead of Richard getting the letter, Kate was the one who opened and read it. So, it was all a tragic accident. Kate died by accident, sticing up for that loser Richard to the bitter. I couldn't believe it, and yet I had to. And there was something more. I had to find out who the old man they kept talking about was. I need to check the investigation board. This is a good lead, but the information... Good evening, Arthur Oliver. Is that Mr. Cattermole? Pardon?
Hello? Hello? It's me, I'm busy.
I'll only take a moment. I have a few questions.
Questions?
By telling the truth, Mr. Cat.
The truth. Well, I suppose...
Excellent. I know all about you and Hitomi Kobayashi. I know about your role in the theft of paintings from the British Museum. I've seen the recording of her talking to Coralie Moreau. What exactly is your connection with Hitomi?
It's all in the past. I wish it had never happened.
Let's take it from the beginning. How did you meet?
At a party at Lionel Kersey's, the cream of society and me. I went to look at the famous The Planters painting. It was hanging in the lounge. Hitomi was already there. We started chatting. She was very well read, elegant, intense, extraordinary. I fell.
You were an item.
I'm afraid so.
In business, too?
No, not entirely. Mr. Oliver, I'd happily erase all those years. All bad. Everything that happened between us. Almost.
Why almost?
Because we had a daughter. A wonderful little girl. Anyway, you've met her. It's Coralie. Well, Coralie, actually. She died because of the ambitions of her mother. And now I must get back to work. My clients are waiting and I need to earn money. I'm a little behind with the rent.
I can help you there. How much do you need? Did you get a closer look at the planters?
Yes. I oversaw the renovation of 2 of the 3 parts.
When was that?
About 20 years ago.
Did the painting have any characteristic features?
Ah, so you know.
I want to hear it from you, Kettermole.
Very well. In the corners of both paintings, the paint was applied more thinly. Underneath, I found some fragments of text. Together, they seemed to create a recipe. But the third, central part of the triptych was missing.
You said recipe. Recipe for what?
Growing coffee, Mr. Oliver. The Kersey's coffee. Its genome was hidden in the paintings. If you could recreate it, you'd be able to make coffee noir.
What did you do when you discovered it?
What did I do? I'll tell you what. I committed suicide.
What are you talking about?
I told her. I told Hitomi about the genome. I didn't know she'd tell her mafia bosses all about it. From that moment, I was a dead man. I had to do everything she said.
And so?
Well, for example, she forced me to steal the originals.
What for?
So the Yakuza could analyze the originals for themselves. I was supposed to replace them with copies painted by Casares. So that's what I did. They came out so well, nobody knew.
Uh-huh. Carry on.
Hitomi was obsessed with finding the missing piece. There was nothing she wouldn't stop at to get it. You know that Casares was spying on the Kerseys for her, pretending to teach the little girl? Yes. The charming Hitomi was a real gangster.
Let's say I believe you. I have a few more questions.
But I really have a lot of work to do.
That can wait. I'll pay another month's rent, Mr. Kettermole. Please indulge me.
If you insist.
I'm glad I could be of assistance. Next question. Where were you on the day of the theft from the British Museum?
I was being held captive.
Hitomi. You already told me that.
No, I was being held by the competition.
Wow, you're really good.
You think that's funny?
No, forgive me. Who was Hitomi's
The Italians. It wasn't only the Yakuza who wanted to get their hands on the planters. The painting was also the object of interest of another mafia family, the Mortanese. They were looking for an expert to confirm the authenticity of the painting hanging in the British Museum.
And the museum curator was to hand...
Precisely. Hitomi came up with the idea that I would deal with verifying the works.
As a spy?
Yes, I was to drag out the analysis of the painting, trying to learn something about the Mortanese plans. Me! You understand?
And what did you find out?
That it was a stupid idea. They looked me up and down and threw me in the basement somewhere. God, I was afraid. That woman's ambitions nearly killed me.
So then how...
Did I escape? Hitomi's people. They found me and got me out of there. The Queen got her pawn back. But not for long.
Indeed. I wanted to ask another thing.
Not today, Mr. Oliver. I really must work.
Then I'll buy your professional time. Instead of renovating a painting, the Yakuza found out about it from Hitomi. She learned about the genome from you. But where did the Mortanese get whiff of it?
It's down to the old man. He put them onto it. Deliberately.
So they knew about the legend of the coffee. They'd heard it might be true and immediately decided to check it out?
Just so. Any power-mad loon would want the genome of that coffee. The most desired substance. Its owner would have absolute power. Just get anyone you needed to addicted.
Sounds reasonable. Who is the old man?
I don't know.
One last question, and I'll let you go.
That's an interesting choice of words. So I'm not your hostage?
Please forgive me. It's a bad habit left over from my police days.
Okay. Forget about it. What do you want to know?
When the Mortonese held you hostage, did you learn anything?
I saw Richard Kersey get murdered. Unfortunately, I had no idea who fired. One of the bosses, I guess. There were 3 of them.
That's important, thanks. Why was he killed?
For the picture, of course. The Mafia wanted to get their hands on it, and Kersey didn't have it anymore. That pissed them off.
I see. Anything else you remember?
There was another guy in the basement with me. I'm almost certain it was Van Haven. You know, the businessman. The one whose disappearance they were talking about on the TV.
Sure, I know the guy. You talked to him?
We didn't have the opportunity. They shut me up in there and took him out. All I heard was, "We have orders to release you." Maybe they quizzed him about the painting too.
It's possible.
That's all I can tell you. I have a certain job to do. I need to focus.
Thank you, Mr. Cattermole. I'll leave you to work in peace. Goodbye. I need to check the investigation board. Now I need to set the new clues and data on the board. Congratulations. You've just got yourself a raise. Congratulations. You've just got yourself a raise. You really deserved this bonus. So, what do I have to... Someone place an order. The deal isn't great, but it's a chance for some extra cash. Another report. Hope there's some good news. A new week, refreshed. Someone placed an order. The deal isn't great, but it's a chance for some extra cash. So, what's going on in this company? You're doing a great job. Someone placed an order. The deal isn't great, but it's a chance for some extra cash.
Finally, Oliver. You are 10 minutes late. I'm waiting for a good excuse.
Neither will be good enough for you, Mortonese. I know how precious your time is, so I'm sorry, and let's get straight to the point. On behalf of our entire crew, thank you for this invitation. Perhaps you know that we're also a family business. The Kersey brothers founded it out of a passion for coffee. It's this passion that I want to share with you today.
You talk nicely about the Kerseys, and I have a sentiment to family business. I started like that myself. This is the reason why I invited you. What exactly can you offer me?
The Kersey family sends their regards. We're very happy that you've become our client. After the head of the house dies, it's not easy to keep this business in check.
Familia is the most important thing, and the loss of its member is a real tragedy. I know something about it. I'll visit the Kerseys at the earliest opportunity, and if I find out about the circumstances of Richard's death, you will also be informed.